like your account is Izzy Swan, right? So that's pretty easy.
Yeah.
Mine's
Yeah.
Voeltner Woodworking. So if I said my last name, you might recognize me. But there are people who just go by random names, and they don't even have a profile picture. So
Yeah.
it's so confusing.
It can be. Yeah. And that's one of the things that I think, especially, Instagram folks too, I'm seeing better and better. Branding is really important. And honestly,
Yeah.
if unless your name is John Smith, your name is a great brand, and I actually paid somebody, I think it was $7,000 to tell me that back in the day when when I started on YouTube, I was Think Woodworks, that was my thing.
Yeah.
Think Woodworks.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I know as I was growing and I started thinking about what my business model would look like long term, and where we're taking this, and I paid a branding guy to help me. I was like, what what do I do? I'm really good at making stuff and out of the box thinking, if you want to call it that, but there's some things I'm not good at. And he said, you have one of the craziest names I've ever heard. You're this giant dude, and you got kind of a feminine name that's not super feminine, and it sticks out. He's like, run with it. So I was like, okay, thanks. Here's $7,000. I'll just call myself Izzy Swan. So
Right. I love it. I always try to nail the drums. I always try to get the drum part, but it
you
depends.
look like you were doing pretty good there.
I nailed it? All right,
Yeah.
Sweet. Hey, everybody, welcome.
Now I want some coffee.
There you go. Exactly. You got to do the coffee with the cinnamon, make it all fancy.
Yeah,
like
now I want, Maggie, you got to go to Starbucks.
That's for the YouTube audience. So it's just a little visual intro there. Welcome to the lounge. I'm Matt with Voeltner Woodworking and your host of the Maker Lounge podcast, where we have a rotating group of makers hanging out and talking craft to each other. Every time I say that line, I think that it's gonna be funny, but maybe I need to change the intro. It's craft, Anyway, enough about me.
I don't know. I was thinking, as soon as you said craft, I thought cheese.
Oh,
but,
yeah. All right. Maybe I need to have a cheesemaker on. Well, today I have a very special guest. He's a maker, a YouTuber, amateur engineer, artist, and master of Jig-O-Nometry. And I know this because I looked at your bio. If you say his name backwards, it's the same as it is forward. I'm talking about the Godfather of invention, Izzy Swan. Thanks, Izzy, for being on the show.
Matt, thank you so much for having me. That's a heck of an intro. So,
it's a lot to live up to.
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to go suck my thumb in the bedroom now. I can't do it.
He called me the Godfather of invention.
Yeah. Oh,
Did you know that your name is the same forward?
Burritos
as backwards?
Is this backwards? No, I had no idea.
Is it, or is it YZ?
YZ? Yeah, it may be. I guess it kind of is. You could pronounce it Izzy both ways, couldn't you?
I think so.
Yeah.
And this has been an episode of The More You Know.
I think I'm going to change my last name to Izzy, but the instead of a Y, an I, so IZZI.
Yeah. You'd be a palindrome.
That will not confuse people at all.
And then you tell them, hey, you spelled my name backwards.
Yep, every time.
Just mind blown.
Right, yeah.
So, Izzy, tell me about yourself, the elevator pitch, if you will.
That's a tough one because I don't really know how to do that kind of stuff. I think you did it pretty well. Amateur was definitely probably a bit over the top. I am less than an amateur engineer. Maker enthusiast. I want to know everything. I think that's probably my poison. I like to build stuff, like to invent stuff. I think more than that, my family's probably the more important thing to me than all of that. And then as a side hustle, I'm a bit of a businessman, a little bit of an entrepreneur.
I'll say. I mean, you have your hands dabble in a lot of things, from, and the reason why I wanted to have you on is basically talking about inventions and pick your brain on how you come up with ideas and things like that.
Sure. Be happy to. That'd be fun.
So you started back, we talked a little bit in the pre-show. You started on YouTube in 2013.
Yep.
But I imagine that your craft goes back, and you also mentioned this in the pre-show, that you were a furniture builder initially, and did that for many years. So you were doing that obviously before you started YouTube. What was your what were you cranking out the most when you were furniture building?
Well, we were pretty unique. Make a very long story as short as possible. After college, I dropped out of school a little early for construction management, and I went to work as a superintendent for a company that did a lot of kidney dialysis centers, so hospital-style buildings, or small hospital-style buildings. And it was a babysitting job. I didn't want to do it, so I went back to work for a childhood boss of mine. When I was coming up, I built log homes during the weekends and summers and stuff. And, I was thinking I was going to go down that route, but I fell in love with rustic furniture down that path. We were building log homes and timber frame homes, town and country, white and white homes. So some higher end, nicer stuff. And I got an opportunity to see a lot of styles of rustic furniture. And, back then, a lot of the lodge pole designs, big log beds and stuff, which were cool, but, I just offhandedly, someone had purchased a piece from Barney Bellinger, which is a guy up in the upstate New York area. He had Soggy Bottom Studios.
Oh, nice.
And it was Adirondack style, and and when I say Adirondack, most people think chairs. Right. But this is birch bark twig mosaic, and not just someone took some birch bark, stuck it on a piece of furniture, and slapped some twigs in the shape of a heart. Right. This was real art. I mean, real art. Yeah. And I'm a fifth generation tradesman. I grew up around furniture and the trades. That's it's in my blood.
Right.
I was trying to escape it by going to college. But I took a lot of those skills that I had and started building that style of furniture. And I wanted to be everybody wants to be the guy that builds one piece every 3 months and sells it for $70,000. And,
oh, yeah.
Gets his name up in lights along the who's who in the New York and Cody, Wyoming and Big Sky, Montana. That was me. I wanted to be that guy.
Sign me up for that.
Right, yeah. And I ran that path for like a year and a half, built a handful of just what I thought at the time were amazing pieces. And for my skill level and artistic ability at the time, they were pretty amazing.
Yeah.
I was constantly pushing myself past my capabilities. But, young family, married, started having kids. I'm like, I got to put food on the table. I can't, my shop, you got to love this. My shop back then was a 16 by 24 foot just floor that I'd built off the ground up in Upper Michigan, up in the UP, down Sturgeon River Road, just down the road from Pickett Dam. And I couldn't afford to do any more than that. I just put this floor down, so it was like kind of like a deck framing with plywood on it. So I went out in the woods and cut down lodge poles and turned it into like this lodge pole frame and put tarps over the top of it. That's what I worked out of for the first. That's what I worked out of for the first year and a half.
Wow.
Using
Do you have pictures of it?
like literally. I think I have one or two around somewhere. I have to take a peek for them, but that's what I had. And I mean, I was buying broken Craftsman table saws and fixing them, so I had a table saw. That's what I could afford back then.
Yeah.
But I that's how I got started. And I quickly realized that wasn't going to do it, but I loved the furniture style. So I went in and started really hunting people that were doing it at a production level.
Yeah.
What would it look like if I could build pieces that were pretty amazing? Not that, definitely not $70,000 pieces.
Right.
But what if I could build a production line that was really, really good looking, gorgeous, and but do it at a production level. And back then, a production level meant like 10 or 12 pieces a week. It wasn't, what it turned into later down the road. So I figured out how to do it. I put my first line together of rustic furniture, birch bark twig mosaic. And I went out to sell it to the world. I literally had packed up. Back then, I was driving this freaking 1982. It was like this puke brown Suburban. It was bad. Like, and if you ever been up to Upper Peninsula, the old vehicles with the steel bodies, like there's rust around all the wheel wells, and they're just falling off. That's what this thing looked like.
That's great.
And I drove that all over Wisconsin, all over Lower Michigan. I drove it everywhere.
Yeah. My first car was a 85 Dodge Sportsman van that was rusted and brown and red. We called it the Brick.
Nice. My first one was a AMC Eagle station wagon. I traded it for a horse and a cow. I kid you not. So,
are you serious? That's
dead serious.
That's hilarious.
But yeah, and I had one guy that I stopped at. Everybody was interested. Everybody was like, "Yeah, we're interested," and I literally had to sell what I had in that truck and trailer to make it home. Like I didn't have gas money to get back to the house.
Yeah. And
I remember the third stop I had made was in Traverse City, Michigan, and this guy had just bought what used to be Traverse City Salt Box or Traverse City Traverse City Bay Woolen Company. Okay. In Traverse City, Michigan, and he turned it into a rustic furniture place. And he bought everything I had right on the spot. Didn't haggle on price, nothing. He bought everything. He said, "I'll take it all. When can I have more?"
Nice.
So I went home. I hired somebody. I bought back then. It was the Home Depot's version of the table saw, the Rigid. Had just came out back in the day when it was still really boxy and had the metal wings that you could see through, and
right.
And I thought I was in heaven. I had a great table saw, and so I just reinvested all the money and started buying better equipment, and then I kind of have a mechanical ability. I'm it was never trained into me. I just yeah. And I've always had it. I mean, when I was a kid, I was the guy that was always taking the toys apart to see how they worked. I didn't. I wasn't really into playing with them. So I started figuring out how to build things faster. And when you're building that style of rustic, nothing straight, nothing square, everything is round, natural curves and movements. So you really have to think abstractly about how you're going to design equipment to make stuff go faster.
Right.
So I started doing that, and I got faster at making them. I was able to sell them a little bit less expensive. I mean, I was still making better money by selling them for less than I had sold them before, but in higher quantities, just by building them faster. Instead of taking a half a day or a day to build a sofa table, I could make 4 sofa tables in a day now with me and a guy.
Wow.
And I could sell them all if my prices were a little bit better.
Right.
So that's what we did.
Wow.
And it turned into a very successful business for a very long time. And then everybody knows what happened in 2008.
Yeah.
We had, at one point, we had 21 employees, which isn't huge, but for that, it is. Right. For that style of furniture, it's a very niche market. We did pretty well. And then 2008 hit, and I remember I had great guys working for me. I mean, they became like family, and it's just one of those things that I would have let go of a year earlier, but we hung on until the end of 2009.
Yeah.
And finally in August, I had taken an order, and I thought was going to get us through the rest of the year. Went to paid the guys, bought all the material, built it, went to deliver it, and they were like, "We have to do this on consignment." And I'm like, "No, you don't." So I packed all the furniture back up in the trailers and took it home.
Wow.
So, but
horrible.
And then I had to let. At that point, we only had 4 or 5 people left working for us because I just kept thinning the herd as the market dropped. And when you talk about markets, they talk about the housing industry, but honestly, if you're in the furniture business, you know it first. And, you know, you also know when the market's coming back first.
Yeah.
Because people quit buying, furniture and vanities and sofa tables and stuff when the money's tight. They just stop.
Right.
And so you feel it first, but you also know that when it's starting to turn around, before they're remodeling their bathrooms and houses or buying houses again, they're buying furniture again. So you start feeling it first too. But anyway, that was that. And I feel like I went way off on a tangent there.
No,
but,
I love it. Yeah, I feel like, last year I sold so many Christmas orders at this time of year.
Yeah.
And this year, I've not seen that amount of orders. So I feel like, and everybody's kind of talking about a potential, downturn. I feel like you mentioned, we're the first to feel it, and we could actually be there. People aren't going to be buying a $200 cutting board. They're buying, the stuff from Dollar Store. Are you seeing that in your stuff?
I mean, yeah, we've definitely. Well, there's several key factors that we look at with sales, and definitely the economy isn't as strong as it was last year. That we don't have a bunch of money being injected into the economy,
right?
But it's not as bad as what people are. What I'm hearing, like when I do occasionally turn on the YouTube channels to go, look at video editing techniques or listen to some music.
Right.
You'll see the world's coming to an end.
Yeah.
It's not all that.
Yeah.
And gas prices are higher. The second gas prices start going up, whether that's diesel, gas, kerosene, people stop. You'll see the spendable money or the disposable income spends slow down a little bit.
Yeah.
And you and I live in a world of disposable products. We don't sell things. We don't sell toilet paper.
Right.
People don't have to have what
we could have made a killing during the pandemic. If we sold toilet paper.
I kick myself in the butt for not owning a toilet paper company right now. But
who would have thought that so many people were buying toilet paper during a pandemic?
Yeah. Well, when you think about it,
Yeah.
I don't use toilet paper, so I don't have a problem there. So.
We're going to have to do the after show with Maggie.
Right, yeah. You're going to need to. Maggie's sitting right next to me, too. She's got a sharp knife, and she pokes me in the leg anytime I get too close to something I shouldn't say.
Right, so. Yeah. Start talking, hey, that's not patented yet. Let's not talk about that.
Right. But, no, it's, so my advice is, be frugal about your spends, but we're not looking at another 2008. I just don't see it. And I'm not don't take financial advice from a part-time crazy person,
Yeah.
But I do run with the kind of folks who keep very close track of these things and know their business pretty well. And every one of them are saying, it's going to get tight, but it's not, it ain't going to be like that. And I tell you, there's a lot of people out there that still have money and are still willing to spend it. They're not as many, but there are still out there. So there's ways to make a living.
Yeah. So I want to back up a little bit. We had talked a little bit. You had mentioned about your process and things like that. And we have a listener question, actually a Patreon supporter who had a question. This is from Steve Mosley with Making at Home. So I'm going to play that.
Hey, Matt. I wanted to find out, what part of the process does Izzy like the most? Is it concepting, is it prototyping, or is it creating the final product?
Ooh, us.
Good
yes.
How do you pick one?
Yeah, the answer is yes. I hate it when it's done.
Yeah.
And I think, honestly, what I really like the most is not something that he mentioned. Mm-hmm. It is after I love all of it. That's, if I could do nothing but invent all day long, come on. Whew.
Right. Yeah.
But I think the thing I love the most is once I have the product finished, the design finished, is figuring out how I'm going to make it the fastest. Like what what's the process look like? You know, and I mean, how do I, if I need to, like, I think one of my more popular ones that people have seen a lot of the past few months, I built a machine that drills 3 holes simultaneously on the side of this little plastic ring we use for our quick locks. You know, we've been making the quick locks for 2 years.
Yeah.
And I'm still looking for ways to make it faster and more productive and more accurate and better. And because contrary to popular belief, the CNC does not do everything. So
Yeah, they think you just push a button and then it magically spits it out and ships it out for you and all that kind of stuff, and markets.
yeah, they could tell that to Maggie the next time she's putting in an 80-hour week in the shipping room.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, even the infeed saddle that I got that maybe a year ago, I think. And you've even changed the mechanism, I think, on the infeed saddle because somebody else posted it, and it's a different mechanism than the one I've got.
Yep. We're constantly looking for improvement.
Yeah.
And I think that what you're talking about is the push-pull toggle clamp. We changed from a black kind of cast one to a bent metal one with a rubber tip on it. You know, we're always hunting. What can we, you know, and that actually costs us more than the one that you had on it, but I don't care.
Right.
I want to make it the better product.
You still selling it at the same price point?
Exact same price point. We don't change that. And that was when, you know, people saw me upgrade my CNC machine.
Yeah.
We were running the Avids, and Avids are decent machines, but I needed to either, back when this whole pandemic hit, we either needed to get, because what people don't know, when that hit, the cost of materials skyrocketed.
Right.
You know, when I was buying, you know, some of the black HTP we use for some of our products for $135 a sheet, and it was now nearly $320 a sheet.
Wow.
You know, overnight almost.
Right.
So I either had to get much faster at making the product, or I had to raise my prices quite a bit. I had to. Maggie and I talked a lot about that. We spent a lot of hard-earned money that we'd been saving up for other things to up our production game because we didn't want to be the guys that were raising our prices.
Yeah.
So we went out and bought the Phantom. I spent a lot of sleepless hours getting our process better and faster so we could, you know, basically still break even. I don't mean break even like, you know, we're not making any money. I mean break even like we can afford those higher material costs, but still sell it for that price point and still make the margin that we have to make it a product that is viable for us to keep in our inventory, you know, on our store. So, you know, those are all tough choices that when you run businesses that you have to make. You either, you know, especially when things like pandemics hit or you have shortages or, you know, just crazy increases in material costs.
Right.
And they happen. And, you know,
Yeah.
that's just part of the business. And people get, I see what a lot of companies make stuff for. And you typically see, like a drill or a sander or something. Companies are looking for 3 or 4 times the cost of actually making that.
Yeah.
Like how much it costs them to make it. So if they're selling it for $300, it costs them $75 to $100 to make it.
Right.
And you think, well, wow, if it only costs them $75, why aren't they selling it to me for, you know, $150?
Right.
I mean, that seems like a reasonable, right?
Yeah.
Not even close. By the time, you know, and we're pretty reasonable about our ask. We're not gouging anybody.
Yeah.
And we don't have sales because we literally sell them for the cheapest we can sell the product, and still make a margin that makes it reasonable enough for us to make. That's why you'll never see a sale on our website.
Yeah.
But you know, once you get into all the costs that are involved beyond just manufacturing a product, like taxes and insurances and material hikes and shortages and everything else, and you know, you still have to pay people that are working for you, even if you don't have the material to make a product. They have to go home and pay their bills.
Right.
So, you know, there's a lot that goes into that decision-making process. So it's a long conversation. Anyway, I'm going to bore everybody if I keep going down this aisle. We'll stop here.
I don't think you'd be boring anybody. Like for me, when I charge for something, I typically use a formula. I take materials and I times it by 3.3%. So I know that
Yeah.
Roughly.
And that's Matt. That's great. That's really great because that's pretty much an industry standard. So, and there's a reason it's 3.3%. It's not because people are trying to get rich off of a single item. It's because the costs that are associated. So
yeah. Well, and when the material cost goes up, if you were paying $130 a sheet and it goes to $300, well, that doesn't mean that you necessarily need to charge 3.3% of that, because so that sounds like what you're doing is you've increased the maybe for the product cost, or have you taken a little bit of a hit on the margin then?
A slight hit, but we've gotten much faster at making it.
Right.
So we're saving on labor. Basically we're saving on labor time. It's that time equation.
Right.
We're saving on labor and time. So that balance it off. And I say $300 a sheet sounds like a lot, but when you're cutting 160 parts out of one sheet, it comes down to 50, 75 cents, 80 cents a part is the difference. So maybe that might not sound a lot, especially when you're selling a part for $30, but there's 5 parts going into that. So there's nearly $5 already that's happened. And then the fasteners costs are higher. All those costs, associated costs are higher. And when you look at it like, oh, it's just one part. Well, it doesn't seem like a lot, but when you start adding all those things up, it's when it really starts to hit home what it is. But, and I'm going to warn you, Matt, and everybody watching right now. The question he asked me was about the inventive process and what I like most. And this is where we've ended up.
Right, yeah.
So,
That's
prepare for the train to keep going off those tracks.
That's okay. We've got a lot of tracks, and eventually we'll land. Now we may land with the fire department at our heels, but we'll land.
It's possible.
Yeah. So I guess your slogan is design, build, invent, and to me that tells me that that's the answer: is design, build, and invent. You like all three, and at no point is it sell or market or anything like that. All three of those things are part of the process.
No, but if you design a product that stops a struggle, it sells itself.
Yeah.
You don't need to be a salesman anymore.
Right. So
you do need to be able to market. Sales and marketing are two different things. Sales are knocking on your door, will you buy this vacuum?
Yeah.
Marketing is putting the product in front of somebody and showing them what it does and then letting them make the decision. So sales and marketing, it's a misnomer that those things are similar. They are completely two different things.
Right.
So you still have to market. I mean, you still got to put some muscle into your, muscle in your hustle when it comes to marketing. But you don't have to be a salesman if you have a product that stops a struggle. Because people are they're going to recognize and go, I have that problem. I'm going to buy that to stop this problem. So that's one of the unique things about STS products.
And so I know we talked about STS is stop the struggle. Yeah. So when you're doing that and you're producing content, are you showing the struggle or are you just jumping right to the solution?
Depends.
Yeah.
I suck at marketing. I'm not good at it. I'm not going to lie. I'm a terrible business person, like running a business. I'm great conceptually, but actually the day-to-day, my paperwork is like the worst you've ever seen. Maggie won't even let me touch it anymore. Usually in the first video when we launch the product, we'll show the struggle and then we'll show the fix.
Yeah.
And then after that, anytime you see the video, it's just doing what it's supposed to do instead of, kind of reliving that so people recognize it.
Yeah.
I should do more of that. Can you write that down?
This is the think tank. We're going to come up with look, you be the inventor guy and I'll help you out with the marketing part of it. Your videos are like your Instagram videos are off the chain, bud. Thanks.
When you did that Instagram video of the X clamp system just before we sold that to woodpeckers,
that was fun.
Oh my! I was like, holy crap!
That was fun.
I mean, he needs to go work for a product company just doing product videos. It was gorgeous. I was like, I'm totally not going to steal it and post it all over my social because it's not mine. I didn't do it, and I'm not going to be one of those stupid brands that steals other people's content to promote their.
Well, I'm sure you'd be one of the guys that at least asks before you do it.
Oh yeah, for sure. But no, that was it really that obviously because I was self-interested, that really caught my eye. And then watching the stuff that you've done after that, just paying attention to your process, it's just been mind-boggling and inspiring. You do some incredible videos.
Thank you. Yeah, it just like you when you say that you're an amateur engineer or whatever. I would say that I'm a moderate woodworker. It's all in the edit.
Well, if you want to come over and pass on some of your edit wisdom,
let's do it.
I'll put you up and feed you steaks.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think, I think a lot of the times people who have that inventive mind, and I've got a little bit of that as well. I've tried to put products or whatever, and it's taking it to market that's the real struggle. So, like when you did your X clamp system, and you sold that to woodpeckers, and they took it and now they're laser cutting it and stuff like that. Was that hard for you to give up that control?
No.
Or was that the goal all along?
No, I think with the X clamps, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with that. That solved a problem that I was having.
Yeah.
Maggie and I, we haven't really promoted it. In fact, we're actually working on a video where we're going to talk about it a little bit. We sell vacuum templates. Some people know about it. Most people don't. It's templates that you vacuum down to a workpiece instead of double stick tape or use screws or whatever.
Yeah.
And we were doing an experiment with cutting boards to see what kind of revenue stream could be built out of like just easy. I mean, they're nice looking,
Right.
but they're relatively easy to make. 7/8 inch thick or 3/4 inch thick cutting boards with some laminations. So I needed to find a way to do that faster. And rather than building a bunch of clamping boards that I had to have all different sizes all stacked around my shop, that's where that came from. I could just take four parallel clamps, drop them in the system, and then I could get it off the rack and on the table in seconds.
Right.
Adjusted to the size, perfectly spanned for the most even pressure. So that's where that came from, and if people when you start walking a path, solving problems, that path is, it starts going in 20 different directions, and it's just pick your poison at that point.
Right.
Because once you solve one problem, you can in that process of solving that problem, you recognize other issues or wants or needs or, and that just leads you down another path. So it's a vicious process to behold.
Well, I would think that it's kind of freeing to, because you're the process person, much like I am the process person. I enjoy the journey. Being able to just let go of that, let it run its course, and then you can move on to the next problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up, especially new inventors. They get so involved in the project they're on and trying to make it this perfect thing. And not that you don't want to make it the best product you can, but until it gets in the hands of the hand users, you're not going to find where all the flaws are.
Yeah.
You can preemptively cover most of them, but
you said the ends of the hand users.
Did I say that? The ends to end that, yeah.
It'll make a great reel. Don't worry.
It's tipping the touch of the iceberg, baby. I also talk backwards a lot. Just
Yeah.
it's just
You have
one
a
of my
talk
things.
of happening backwards.
I do. Yep. And fast.
Yeah.
So, but no, when you put it in the hands of the end user, that's when you're going to find out what you screwed up on or what you missed, or maybe there was something there that you hadn't thought of that some other person was struggling with, and you can make a tweak to fix that. So, don't spend the rest of your life trying to get one product absolutely perfect.
Right.
And don't get caught up on a single idea. And this is where you see some real poison happen to people. You get an inventor who invents something and you think it's the greatest thing on the planet.
Yeah.
And to him, it may very well be, or her, it may very well be. But to 99% of the rest of the population,
Right.
But they're so vested in it. They've dumped their energy, their heart, and everything. When you tell them that it's not something we're interested in, they get offended.
Right.
They're like, "Oh, this is the best thing ever." I'm like, "Not to me, it's not."
Right. Yeah, I'm guilty.
Maybe to you, or
Yeah.
No, it's hard. It's hard when you've put that energy, that time, that vested, that thought, to hear somebody say, "I'm not really interested in your product."
Well, in a patent.
So I always tell people, don't get.
Patent costs $8,000 or $9,000. Just for a utility patent.
It depending, I mean, you could be as little as 3 or 4 if you do it. Depending on what you're doing, how you're doing it, but you're looking at $8,000 to, sometimes $20,000 for a utility.
Right. Yeah. When I was going through the process,
should you patent?
Yeah, exactly. That was the question. Is going through the process, the patent process. Should I do it? And I didn't want to put a product out there before the patent was out there, but all the patent people were saying, no, just go ahead and do it. If you started, getting the product out there. So do you worry about any of that kind of stuff, or do you just put it out there and test the market and then deal with the patent stuff later?
No, I have patent attorneys. I just call them and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What should I do? And you'll be surprised, a good patent attorney, 80% of the time will tell you don't bother patenting it.
Right.
A bad one will just want your money and they don't care.
Yeah.
And it's not that they want your money for the patent, because they do, but they want that patent so they can, they can take that to court and sue somebody, and make good money after it. And if you don't have the money, and if you don't think the product that you're inventing will bring you the money to back up a patent, and I'm talking to the tune of $500,000 for a patent lawsuit, the patent's worthless. It's a piece of paper you can wipe your hiney with, because if you can't back it up, it's not worth the paper it's written on.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, that $20,000 patent becomes a lot less valuable unless you have the wherewithal to back it up.
Yeah.
You can threaten people. You can send a letter.
Yeah.
You can even threaten them with a lawsuit. But the companies that are typically going to blatantly just rip you off aren't going to care, because they have 12 attorneys sitting behind a desk somewhere going, we'll bury these guys in paperwork for the next 5 years, $500,000 in lawsuits.
Yeah.
And we'll just ride this out. And in the meantime, I'm going to be making money. They're going to be selling your stuff and making money off of it. And if you think it's recoverable, in some cases, some of it might be. But, and I'm not, again, don't take advice about patent law from a crazy person.
Total disclaimer for everybody out there. We're just two guys sitting around in the lounge drinking, whatever we're drinking.
Right. I'm just, I'm sharing my experiences as such as they are.
Yeah.
Take them as with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
And it's not gospel,
Right.
If I posted this on Facebook, somebody's going to believe that it's gospel, and that's a lie. It's not true.
Yeah.
This is just my experiences that I'm sharing. So please don't take them any other way.
Yeah. Has there been a product that you, going back to the whole process, and you start thinking about a product that you think, man, this is the next thing best since sliced bread, that you've just really tried to push, and it just the market wasn't there?
No.
Because you're surrounded by a good set of people, I guess, that give you good advice? Or?
Yeah. First of all, I don't usually think that it's, the next, I don't think I'm going to ever invent anything that's the next, as good as sliced bread thing. I don't think I have that skill. I'm never going to change the world with some new type of battery technology. Yeah. It's not going to happen.
Right.
What I can do is solve day-to-day issues that we have around the shop and in some building types. And there's a few things that I have some skill for and a proclivity to lean towards those things.
Yeah.
So I don't see that happening. I mean, maybe if I invent free energy or something. But,
yeah. Sign me up for that as well. There's a lot of things I'm going to be signed up for by the end of the night.
So,
yeah.
No, but and that's a joke. That's a joke. Any engineers watching this or listening to this, that's a joke. I'm a complete believer. I'm an absolute complete believer in the laws of physics. So don't think I think free energy is a thing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, I work for an oil and gas company, so right now that's paying my bills. The woodworking is just a side hustle, just trying to make it.
So if I do stumble across it, Matt, for you, I'll just burn that sucker down.
Right.
So.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so do my grandchildren someday.
Right.
But yeah, and on the patent thing, and putting products out there, the person that the company that is going to produce your product and rip off that idea, they could probably do it at a fraction of the cost. So I guess you're just trying to get stuff out there as fast as possible to kind of everybody.
Well, yeah. So what you guys see, which I know seems like a lot in social media, is not even close to what's actually going on behind the scenes.
Yeah.
You know, not even close.
Right.
But yeah, you know, as far as the stuff that we do online with YouTube and the social media and those products, I put a provisional on the X clamp system because I knew that was, I mean, I just knew that was going to be a thing.
Right.
The quick locks, I could have put a design patent on, but they're really not a patentable product.
Yeah.
So I mean, anybody can make them now, but we do have some protection on them in the way of first to market and a few other things, which used to mean a lot more than they do today.
Right.
But even the quick locks, I won't be making those much longer. I'm working with a great company that's probably going to be making those, and I can't say any more than that.
Yeah. Maggie's poking
you know, so I yeah, she gave me the dangerous look, you know.
Danger.
Where you going with this? So, yep.
Yeah.
So we won't be making those a whole lot longer. So if you want an original quick lock, and another thing that we do is people don't know about it, and we haven't done a good enough job about marketing it, is we also have our products in other places. Like if you wanted to buy quick locks, Mike Taylor at Taylor Toolworks is sitting on
good guy.
a crap load of them. He just ordered a buttload of them from us.
Yeah.
So if you wanted, you know, if you order from us, you're better off ordering from him because they'll get shipped directly.
Right.
We usually, not always, we usually make a batch of, you know, X amount, and they sit in a box. And when they're gone, we might get a couple of orders in the interim while we're waiting for more plastic to come.
Right.
And so, I mean, you're going to be waiting much longer from us, you know, days longer if you order from us than you are from Taylor Toolworks.
Yeah.
And he sells them for the same price we do.
Yeah.
So, but some people want to buy them from us, so, you know, we still want to make them. But yeah, I forgot where I was going with that. So,
That's all right.
all right. That's off the tracks two times now. Let's go. Let's see if we can hit 5 tonight.
Oh, we'll get there for sure. No problem. So I know that there's a couple things that people have, you know, just talking about your most recent posts. We've got, you know, anything from this Izzy lift system to the sandpaper tester. Where do you want to go? Which one do you want to talk about?
You name it, buddy. I'm there.
Let's go with the Izzy lift.
I'll tell you anything. I'll tell you anything and everything, unless I can't.
Yeah. So many people don't know. Like, you've recently had a couple health things that have limited mobility, I think is the best way to probably put it, around the shop, and that's where the Izzy lift kind of. Is that where that was born from?
Most people, a lot of people know that I have back problems. I had a major back surgery a couple years back, and what most people don't know is that the two screws, I have two large screws that hold my spine to my hips, basically, below all the cages, clips, and screws and wires they put in my back. I have these two 4.5-inch screws on both sides of my spine that were too short. They didn't have ones long enough for the size of my spine structure. Wow. And my physician, he's literally, my physician said, you know, he said, I can't believe I didn't get it from the x-rays, but you literally have the largest skeletal structure I've ever seen. So the screws they had were too short. He said, I should have had 6 inches here. And it's not like you can just run out of the hardware store and buy two 6-inch titanium screws. And I've already been on the operating table for 12.5 hours. So he said, I put them in.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, they did fine. As long as I took it easy for a year and a half, I was walking, getting around a lot better. And then I had a little slip up in the shop, and those screws came loose. So now I'm back in the chair most of the time.
Yeah.
I can stand up and walk around for a few minutes at a time. I can walk with the assistance of a cane. And in the mornings, I can walk without the cane pretty good for a little while until the pain kicks in.
Yeah.
And then I'm in the chair, you know, and I can get in and out of it enough to, you know, and Maggie kind of, you know, she kind of was in an offhanded comment put an end to this, where in video content, I'm trying to hide the chair, stand up, you know, and not just own the fact that I'm back in the chair, you know, just on YouTube content.
Right.
Because I always feel like if I'm standing, there's more presence
Yeah.
than if I'm sitting.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like, and that's not, it's just when I'm talking and when I'm moving and, you know, I feel like there's more presence when I'm standing,
Right.
where I'm more present than when I'm sitting.
Yeah.
And Maggie just made some offhanded comment about that when we were recording one afternoon. She doesn't even know it hit home with me. And I'm like, I'm being an idiot. I'm trying to force myself through this pain and discomfort to get through this video when I could do 90% of what I'm doing just sitting here.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what
And if
sucks
people-
is that
if
people
people-
think that they, you know, subconsciously, there's, you know, when you're in a meeting or something like that, if one person's standing and one person's sitting, that person's already, you know, positioning themselves in a dominant position. So I don't think you're off base
Sure.
by thinking that you're more authoritative by doing that.
Yeah, and for me, it's just I feel like I'm leaning into it a little more than when I'm sitting in a chair. You know, so there's a personal thing, there's a personal psychological thing that's happening in my brain, and even when I'm editing content or looking at the video content, I feel like I'm a little more subdued when I'm sitting in a chair than when I'm standing.
Yeah.
You know, and we're learning, we're doing some really interesting stuff with our videos. And we'll have the first one out in a few days, and it's a different style than what we've done. And I like the style. It's a little harder to record, and we suck at some of like the panning shots. I'm starting to learn frame rates and how to make a nice fast pan without it looking like somebody was holding the camera and shaking its head off.
Blair
like,
Witch.
You know, trying to shake its, you know, trying to choke it to death. In fact, we struggled with Maggie and I were out in the shop struggling with this slider rail for probably
45 minutes.
45 minutes of shooting and an hour of setup for shots that are literally going to be 3 seconds long in our next video.
Right.
You know,
That's crazy.
Literally.
That's crazy.
And we still didn't get them right.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just like I threw my hands up. This was the second day of spending 2 or 3 hours trying to get these little sliding shots. And I'm like, okay, we learned some stuff on this one.
Yeah.
We'll do better on the next one. And I'm going to go spend a pile of money on automated sliders. So I don't have to figure out how to slide it by hand and jerk. Maggie's over there.
I see the finger.
Maggie's a lot more steady than I am.
She's
Yeah.
For the people in the audience, she darn near put her hand over his mouth a second ago. But
Yeah, when I should spend a bunch of money.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's her.
Yeah.
But she doesn't get up as early as I do, and I have access to the Amazon account. So,
yeah, something shows up. So on the slider, I saw it lifted, 720, 740 pounds. We know that's all wheelchair. But
sure.
Don't ask for permission.
but the
Yeah, the lift system did can lift. Well, we lifted myself and the wheelchair, which cumulatively was 734 pounds.
yeah, okay.
24 or 34? Do you remember?
24.
Maggie says 24.
Okay. Yeah. So that's going to be a huge
Yeah.
help kind of in the shop. So that was an invention out of, I mean, it's again, that's nothing like earth shattering. I mean, they have those types of lifts and stuff like that,
No.
but it's
No,
not
no.
for a home shop.
Yeah, we went.
That's pretty
Yeah,
innovative.
we went to IWF, and I went to IWF because Phantom CNC was going to be there. My buddy owns that, and you know there was going to be some other folks there. So Ethan invited us. Ethan Builds invited us to go and you know hang out at the Maker Lounge a little bit.
Yeah.
So and then Grabo was going to be there. It just made sense for us to go, and I had already been thinking in my head about buying a lift, you know, a vacuum lift to help us move material around because we have a couple of sheets that weigh nearly 400 pounds that we have to CNC fairly regularly. And Maggie, you know, what most people don't know now is that we're a small crew. I mean, Brad was with us for a few years. He's no longer with us. It's just me, Maggie, and my son Quinn. That's our crew.
Yeah.
And so it's not like I have 4 guys, you know, or gals or people that I can call that come over and move this sheet for me. And I'm an insomniac. If I get 5 hours of sleep, I had a really good night. Most of the time I'm up at 2 a.m. on the computer or out in the shop. And I'm not waiting until 8 or 9 for my son to come out to the shop to move some stuff around.
Right.
So that's where that came from. But, getting back to the IWF thing, I was going there to look at buying one. The cheapest thing I saw there was $14,000. And it was for nothing.
Wow.
It was nothing. It was a track system, a vacuum pump, and basically a air sleeve with a cloth wrap around it.
Yeah.
With a couple of little actuation controllers, some pneumatic controllers. And I'm like, they didn't have more than $1,000, maybe $1,200 into the material into this thing with the labor to build it.
Yeah.
And they wanted $14,000 for it, and that was the weepest one.
Wow.
They were averaging around $20,000 a piece for a 600-pound lift capacity.
Wow.
I was like, yeah, no, there's too many people that could benefit from this, and I see it, especially as I get older. Other folks are getting older. They want to keep doing slabs or working with plywood, whether they're using it for a CNC or a workbench, whatever it's for. Mm-hmm. This had to be a thing. So I went home and I figured out how to build one that we could sell for $500.
Yeah. No, it's a great system. I was looking at the website and looks like you sell a couple different options, for people.
Yeah, we sell one that you can actuate the grabos from the metal handle, and one that you just push the buttons. So people that want to. The problem with these this is by far the most expensive thing that we manufacture. It has the largest cost of manufacturing.
Yeah. There's
the largest number of parts, assembly. There's a lot of things that can go wrong in between all that stuff, and it's a simple product.
Yeah.
But people got to remember, we're a simple shop.
Right.
We don't have the type of technology. We have a CNC, and we got a CNC and a Maggie. So
I've got the CNC. I just need a Maggie.
Everybody should have a
Everybody
Maggie.
needs
I'm
a
telling
Maggie.
you.
Yeah, she's great.
Everybody needs a Maggie. I got to make a T-shirt that says "Everybody needs a Maggie."
I'd buy one.
She works as hard as I do.
Yeah.
And I mean, she sleeps a little longer than I do.
Right.
But works definitely harder than I do.
Yeah.
So.
Well, speaking of moving slabs, you have this jig that you're working on for flipping over slabs, and I know you put it out there asking people, for some questions or comments. So, do you have an idea where you're going to take this thing?
Yeah. I got some when I ask for feedback in a YouTube video, I'm genuine about that. I want to see what you have to say, because this was one of those things that I felt like this is never going to be a product I'm going to manufacture. Yeah. I may put some plans out for the final version of it, but it's well beyond our scope. Yeah. The lift systems, I'm hoping Grabo will start manufacturing, so we don't have to keep doing them. Which it sounds like there may be a thing. They're also interested in our rock cart and a couple other products. It's just up to me to get them the prototypes, which I'm slow on.
Yeah.
But the slab flipper, I wanted people's feedback because I kept feeling like there was something I was missing on this product. Yeah. It's cool. I love that when it flips, the legs move back and forth to give you that balance and kind of equal it out. So it made more sense for me just to do a video going, hey, this is what I'm thinking. What do you guys think?
Yeah.
And we got so many great comments. And, whenever you ask opinions of people, they're going to give it to you.
Yeah.
So there's a few of them in there that were like, this is dumb. You should just use a strap. And they completely lost, they completely lost the whole why we're not using a strap. That, I didn't come out and say, this is why we're not using a strap.
Right.
But I mentioned a lot of things about the process of flipping heavy materials that kind of, preclude a strap. Like, that's not going to work. But we got a lot of great feedback, and there was actually, God, I wish I could remember them now. There was 2 comments in there that really hit home with me, and they didn't really have like direct, this is what you need to do, but they led me to that path.
That's good.
And that's really where whiteboarding, and that was basically a whiteboarding video, is so, so amazing.
Yeah. They're great for engagement.
And I'm yeah, well, no, it was, yeah, I guess that's true. But we had a lot of comments, a lot of really good offers, a lot of really good opinions. And there was a couple comments in there that really just kind of like, oh yeah. And then that kind of just led me down a path to some changes that we're going to make in the final version. Yeah. So
I still haven't got a Grabo.
Again, that final version's What?
I know. I still haven't bought one. What was it? A couple years ago, I think you started posting about the Grabo, and I was like, man, I need to get that. And even though they're in Lowe's or Home Depot or something now, and I still haven't picked one up. But
yeah, they're in Lowe's now. Yeah. Everybody thought I was nuts when I posted that video. I was like, I forget what the title was. This tool's going to be on every job site in 5 years. I think it was the title or something like that.
No, it's true.
It's
true.
And a year and a half later, they're in Lowe's, and you start seeing them on more and more and more and more job sites everywhere you go now. I saw R&R Buildings just posted the other day about it. He goes, I thought this was gimmicky, and now that I'm using one, I can't live without it. I'm like, I told you, sucker.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I'll need to pick one up this week or something, because it's there's so many uses for that type. Even just the technology, you're using it for things that people wouldn't think to use it for, which is the templates and stuff like that. Because CNC tape is great, but if you didn't, for mass production, nobody wants to sit there and try to peel the tape off, the double-sided tape and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Does it?
Well, and like I was talking about, the earlier thing is that we did a little experiment with a business of making cutting boards to see if it was a viable 6-figure a year income, and we actually talked to people. It wasn't just me talking words. If we needed to, Maggie and I could make cutting boards and do 6-figure income just freaking making cutting boards with a router table and a table saw. Yeah. So for us, we don't just talk about it. I know this sounds like a PR, sounds like a freaking PR scam. We don't, that's the truth. We don't just talk about our stuff. We live our stuff. Yeah. We test it. We make sure that what we're saying is true.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, Matt, I interrupted.
No, that's good. And then the sandpaper tester. You don't have to give away your results of that here. But how did have you done the complete test?
There aren't any yet.
Okay.
So,
it's a cool jig.
The first test we're going to do is, you know how when you do comparison videos, everybody's going to be like, well, you did this wrong, or you put too much pressure on this one, or you introduced human error. Well, we're taking the human error out of the equation. Yeah. And the first thing we're doing is we're testing 5 different dust extractors, some that are comparable in price range and some that are a little bit more affordable, and just putting them side by side and using that unit to test them to see what kind of results we get. And we're just doing the black glove test. We're not, I'm not getting my particle meter out to measure the air,
Right.
You see some YouTubers get their particle meter out, and I'm just like, really, folks?
Yeah.
But, and I get it. But you'll never, you might see me get my anemometer out, just in case you don't know what that is. It measures wind velocity or air movement. And that will that's just so I can check to see how much hot air I'm full of. But, so we're going to do that. We're going to do the black glove test. Sand something white on a black surface, sweep it off, see how much crap is left on your finger. That's our fancy test.
No,
so,
love it.
But
well, awesome.
Yeah. So that's happening, and then we're going to test some. We got some sandpaper stuff that we're going to test. Our buddy over at Lincoln Street's doing a video on some of the sandpaper right now, and we're just going to let him run with that and give him a few weeks to get his views in, and we're going to do our own little test afterwards.
Yeah,
so,
between the two of you guys, you probably have 1.5 million YouTube subscribers. So I'm sure it's going to get some discussion.
Yeah, I have no idea how many John has, or quite frankly, I don't know where we're at. I know it's over 800,000.
Yeah.
So.
I think he's up there for sure. He's
I know his views are, for a guy who's put out 10 or 15 videos, his views are off the chain, but he has an amazing process. It is something that I would never in my life ever do. Views be damned. I don't care about, that. But it is mind-boggling what he goes through to make a single video.
Yeah.
It's it's analytical in the extreme.
Right, exactly.
And he does not make a video unless he's 99% sure it's going to get lots of views.
Right, and that's
he
evident.
won't just make a video for the sake of making
I think
one.
he only has like 12 videos out there. And yeah,
I don't know what it is. It's not many.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. So do you, I saw you sell some digital files and plans and stuff like that, and we've talked a little bit about it. Do you think that there'll be more of that kind of going forward? What's the plan for digital files as people try to...
Yeah, so I'm glad you asked that, because we're going through a transition here. I think we actually found someone to manufacture some of our stuff for us, which we've been hunting for a while. But yeah, you can't just say, "Hey, I want, Izzy, I'll make this stuff for you." Mm-hmm. It's not that simple. Right. I mean, there's a lot. There's material acquisition. There's the legal side of it. There's how we set up orders coming through that go to them so they can manufacture and fulfill. And we're not. I mean, the guy I'm talking to, he's a great guy, absolutely trustworthy, and we take 15% of the profit, and he takes everything else. And that's kind of where we want to be, is like, I'm comfortable at that 15% mark, which is how I work with a lot of tool companies that I design for and stuff, which is pretty high on an industry level. So, but so don't go to a tool company asking for 15% if it's your first time out of the gate. Right. They will not only laugh at you, but they will escort you out the door with the boot. So we're working on that. So our strategy moving forward is classes.
Okay.
But first we want, so in the sequence of things outside of our tiny home business and the Tryon group and the investment groups, more videos, get better at the content. And I don't, how do I make that more engaging? How do I make that content more engaging, more fast paced? So it's, what's the word I use? More consumable. Or John may have used it. So it's more consumable. Yeah. So that's what we're working on right now. Once we have that process done, so figure 2 or 3 months, we're moving into courses. So we want to make some business-related CNC courses. Not just how to run a CNC for business, but how to actually find work, what to look for, what to avoid. Yeah. Those kind of things. So we're going to do some courses along those lines. And then I think once the courses are done, classes, and, Maggie's been after me about doing more plan sets and taking my furniture designing skills to design more things like bed and Adirondack chairs and things that people would be interested in building. Yeah. So we're going to try some of that. Cool. I mean, so I'm 50. Yeah. I'll be 50 in a few months. I'm not, I have to at some point recognize that I'm not 30 years anymore, and I have to start taking better care of myself. And Maggie says to do that, I have to quit working 80 to 100 hours a week.
You got to sleep a little more than 5 hours a night.
Yeah, I don't know. I've been doing that since I was 20. Yeah. So I just tell people, if I die when I'm 55, I'll have lived more than the average person who lives to 75.
That's true.
I mean, waking hours. If we're qualifying waking hours, I have been awake more than somebody who lives to not 75, 72. Yeah. I did the math once. So,
of course you did.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. So I want to record a little bit for an after show, and in the after show, I'm going to do something that I'm calling rapid fire. And so we'll go through that. Basically, I'm going to just give you a phrase or a question. You just respond, as you see in the first, your first response type of thing.
Got you.
But before we head over to the after show, one last question. What's the future of Izzy Swan and production / Maggie?
So the Izzy Swan production, we're going to start outsourcing a lot of that, and we're still designing for some tool companies and moving product with them. And in some of those companies you'll see my name on it. Other ones you won't.
Yeah.
But that's one of the things I'd like to do, is do more designing for companies like Woodpecker Tools and some of I have relationships I can't name, so I don't want to give anything away right there. But for them, when see my name on some tools, kind of my legacy, so
Yeah.
to speak, beyond what we've done on social media and some of the other stuff I've done.
Yeah.
So that we'd like to do more of, and we want to relax more.
Yeah.
So we're going to spend the rest of the winter procuring stuff and designing things for our, I call it tiny home.
Yeah.
600 square feet of indoor space and almost 2,000 square feet of usable
Yeah,
space.
that's tiny.
So it's my tiny home, my version. And we're looking for some land up in the mountains with a river on it. And
man.
we're going to spend the next couple of years building this tiny home. And something unique about that, and this is an entirely enclosed ecosystem that we're building. That's my challenge
cool.
to myself. So no well, no septic, no water hookups. We're doing all atmospheric water condension.
Yeah.
A system I designed a few years
Cool.
back. I want to put that in. Generating our own power, take care of our own poo,
Yeah.
all this stuff. So
You're gonna.
Incinerate.
Maggie's like, tell them it's going to be an incinerating toilet. We're not going to have a composting toilet.
You're not going to be making fire starters out of your poo.
No, we're not making poo fire. Ooh,
Poo fire starter.
no.
Hey.
No, I can't imagine what that. Yeah. What would that smell
I
like?
don't know. It works
though?
great, but it smells like.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's right. That's the swear
That's the
word
swear word
button.
button. Yeah.
I was thinking it was the marker
Yeah.
button. Right. Gotcha. Sorry.
So
it works great, but it smells like bleach. So. So anyway, that's what we want to do.
Cool.
And now we want to do the after
Yeah, I'm
show.
gonna head over to the after show. I know that I said that was the last question, but one last question is: you're a fifth generation. Will this carry on to sixth generation? What's your thoughts on that?
We'll see. When I was my children's age that would move into this, I was not interested in what I do now. So I have one that's showing some interest, and I think as he, like Quinn's with us now, I think as he realizes the potential of what this could be in so many, hundreds of different directions, he may take interest in it. And I have one other one that I have some hopes for. But honestly, I think if you would have asked my father or my grandfather if I was the kid that was going to come back and do this, they'd have said absolutely not. This is like I would be the last one they would pick that would come back to the.
Oh yeah.
We'll call it the trades for lack of a better
There you go.
term. So
Nice. Well, Izzy, thanks so much for being on the podcast. Appreciate it. Like I said, we're going to head over to the after show. But if people aren't following you already, which I imagine 99% of my audience is already following you, but tell people where they can find you on your various socials.
Well, I'm at the Maker Lounge Podcast on Instagram.
Yep.
You can find me there. So, Matt, what's your Instagram handle, Matt?
Voeltner Woodworking.
Voeltner Woodworking on Instagram. You can find me there. YouTube channel is the same, right?
Yep. I like it. I like where you're going with this.
You could find me at Voeltner Woodworking on YouTube.
Well, that's
there you
good.
go.
And coincidentally, I'm Matt with Voeltner Woodworking, and you can find me on Instagram at Voeltner Woodworking. Izzy and I, we share a lot of ideas.
In all seriousness, if you want to find me, just type Izzy Swan in anywhere, and I pop up.
Yeah, I just for the fun of it, I Googled, and I was like, let me see the top 10 things that pop up when I Google Izzy Swan. And when I Google Izzy Swan, your photo's in the top 10 in every single slot. And when I Google Matt Voeltner, there's a bunch of different random people. So I got to work on my Google presence.
Yeah, but what you're not telling everybody is, Matt, that in slot number 11 is that hot chick from the vampire movies back in the day. The
Buffy the
movies,
Vampire.
what were they called? No, not Buffy. The movie series.
Twilight.
Oh,
Twilight. So the girl's name in there, the main character's name was Isabella Swan, and everybody called her Izzy. So it's Izzy Swan.
That's great.
So if you actually type it in and you look down the profile pictures, it's this fat middle-aged woodworking redneck, and then a bunch of that, and then there's this cute girl. I'm like, great, that's what I get to.
Not bad for marketing, I guess.
I suppose not.
Well, thank you so much. So we've got some patrons. Thank you to the patrons of the Maker Lounge podcast. We've got Matthew with Artigiano Serio. And we've got Jimmy McAnally in the top tier spots. We've got Steve with Making It Home and Justin with J&E Designs. And we've also added Annette with 513 Woodwork. So if you want to be a Patreon supporter, head on over to patreon.com/Maker Lounge Podcast, and you can get early access to the podcasts, as well as we've got an Instagram chat. So we talk about different ideas and things that the patrons are looking for. So it's a great time. You get a lot of great benefits out of being a Patreon supporter. So head on over there.
And Matt, can I mention that these things take a lot of work, and the fact that you're doing this is pretty impressive. And if people are enjoying this, they really should go over there and help support you. I mean, every little bit of that helps. Yeah. As a content creator, we really understand that. So go do it, guys. I
appreciate that. Yeah, I mean, right now this podcast costs me more, my wife tucking the kids into bed and, trying to keep them quiet and all that kind of stuff. There's a lot of things, like you say, that don't end up in the content that we produce, that us content creators put out there. A lot of the behind the scenes stuff. And the podcast does, you pay for every hour that you record, essentially. And for all the different, channels, website, it's $25 a month, all that kind of stuff. So it adds up. So every dollar, every patron supporter. So thanks, Izzy, for saying that. I think it,
You're welcome.
Just across the board.
Thank you for doing this.
So next week, I'm still lining out next week's guest. But I think it's going to be a great one. And if I can, I'm trying to line up a couple different people. So we'll see if that lands, but we'll head on over to the after show. Again, thanks for supporting the Maker Lounge podcast, and we will catch you guys next week. We are heading into the after show. If you're not a patron, we'll see you next week for another great episode, but if you are, you will receive a link to listen to the after show. Thanks so much for listening and sharing the podcast with your friends.